as I said, Kobe, it hasn't even officially been a year since your last game as a Laker, but, and I'm struggling to think of you as retired. So tell us, how is retirement treating you?
You know, it's funny. It's more like a transition. You know, I retired from the game of basketball, but then, you know, I've since picked up, you know, a different industry. You know, the investment industry has been something I've really been passionate about. One of the first investments I made in a sports drink company called Body Armor has been extremely successful, and trying to make smart decisions. I think it's important. It's hard. I mean, you guys know. You guys have seen the stories before, where it's very difficult for athletes to transition post-career. And you got to find things that you're passionate about. In my situation, you know, I found a great partner in Mike Rapoli, and we've been able to grow the business pretty quickly. And then the business of storytelling, which is something else that I'm extremely passionate about.
Yeah, you mentioned passion. So tell us about your passion project, which we'll see Sunday on ABC, where you premiere a special project you've been working on. What can we expect?
Well, you know, the challenge was, how can I create something that the entire family will enjoy? Is there a new voice for storytelling that, you know, I can sit down with my daughters and they can actually, you know, be entertained by it, and I can, you know, teach them sports and teach them the game of basketball without feeling like I'm being, you know, an overbearing parent, overbearing father. How do I do that? And so I sat down to write this piece in the world of Canvas City. And I teach these lessons through sport, but also by using creativity and infusing a little magic as well.
How would you describe yourself, Kobe, as a storyteller, as a filmmaker?
Well, you know, it's interesting. It's I would say a patient storyteller. And what I mean by that is, you know, you have to be able to let things develop and allow the audience to make their own conclusions or come to their own level of understanding, and not spell everything out, and leaving that room for the viewer, even if you're speaking to a 10-year-old kid or 20 or 30, it doesn't matter. We try to create moving art pieces where that, you know, the viewer can make their own conclusions, and it may feel differently from viewer to viewer.
We're about 3 weeks away from the 1-year anniversary of your final game when you dropped 60. I'm not gonna front, I still have it saved on my DirecTV. I'm not deleting that. What's the best memory from that night for you?
Having my family there, and you know, our 2 daughters, and, you know, having Bianca Bella in the belly. But, you know, our girls had never seen me perform at that level. You know, when I was doing that stuff, you know, they were so little, too small to remember. So it felt good for them to actually be there, to actually say, you know, my dad was a pretty good basketball player. It wasn't just, you know, just myth.
Well, not only just pretty good, maybe, not maybe, you were one of the greatest to ever play it. And one of the things you were known for, on top of your competitive instinct, was the fact that you rarely missed games. And as you know, there's a lot of talk right now about players resting, and Adam Silver, he has even sent a letter to owners saying he wants them to be involved in the decision-making process when it comes to resting starters. What do you think about stars resting in the regular season?
Well, I think there are certain ways. I mean, listen, it's hard because as fans, you want your team to win championships. As players, that's what your focus is to win championships. So you try to do everything you can to achieve that end result, which means sometimes missing games. But that being said, I think there's ways to come up with a style of play in which you can conserve energy, picking your spots on the floor, picking your moments in the game. There are ways to get around that a little bit. But that being said, none of us know how their body truly feels, right? So the athlete ultimately has to make the decision himself. And but personally, I try to kind of pick spots and nights where I knew I didn't have it or needed to conserve my legs a little bit.
Would you reduce the number of regular season games if it were up to you?
Well, I mean, that's certainly an option, right? I think it's a viable option. You know, the biggest issue that we all have, I think, with missing games is that, you know, what about the mother who brings her daughter, or the father who brings his son and so forth to the game, who have saved up and have been looking forward to this night, you know, all season long, and they show up there and their favorite players aren't performing. You know, that as athletes, you just feel absolutely horrible about. So if you're reducing the schedule and players are able to be there every single night, then you minimize the opportunity of that disappointment happening.